She thought it was just another day of control, another act of entitlement. A Karen from the HOO rolled her car straight into a black homeowner's garage, certain she could get away with it. But what she didn't realize was that this time, the power wouldn't be hers. With one simple move, the tables turned, and suddenly she was the one trapped, desperate, and exposed. This wasn't just about a garage. It was about dignity, justice, and a moment she never expected. The question is, what happened when she couldn't escape? For Marcus, homeownership wasn't just about having a roof over his head. It was about finally claiming a space in a world that too often told him he didn't belong. His modest house stood at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where lawns were trimmed, driveways spotless, and rules plastered on every bulletin board by an overzealous HOA. To Marcus, it was more than property, it was pride. A symbol of hard work and a place where his family could feel safe. But beneath the neat hedges and manicured sidewalks, there was tension. Some neighbors whispered, some stared too long, and some, like the self-appointed Karen of the HOA's very presence as an intrusion. Still, Marcus stayed focused. He worked, he cared for his home, and he believed that respect would be earned with time. That belief was tested one morning when he walked outside and saw something that made his stomach twist. Parked bold and uninvited in his garage was a sleek SUV that didn't belong to him. It wasn't a mistake, it was arrogance. And as Marcus stood there, staring at the steel and glass taking up his space, he realized this was more than a violation of property. It was a challenge. A line had been crossed, and soon, the entire neighborhood would feel the weight of what came next. Marcus stood frozen in his driveway, staring at the SUV in his garage. The nerve of it. This wasn't an accident, this was deliberate. He recognized the plates immediately. It was Karen, the woman who never missed a chance to remind him that people like him didn't fit in their perfect little neighborhood. She had complained about his grass length, his guests, even the color of his front door. But this was more than petty harassment. This was her claiming that his space wasn't his at all. He felt the burn of anger in his chest, but he didn't rush. Instead, Marcus pressed the garage remote. The heavy door rumbled down, sealing Corinne's car inside like a cage. For the first time, the balance of power shifted. He wasn't the intruder, here she was. Within an hour, the neighborhood buzzed. Karen stormed to his porch, banging on the door, her voice shrill enough to carry across the cul-de-sac. She shouted about rights and rules, as if her position on the HOA board gave her ownership of his property. Marcus didn't answer. He let her stew, pacing in front of his home while her precious SUV sat trapped. But it didn't take long for backup to arrive. Other HOA members showed up, muttering about community harmony, their eyes fixed more on Marcus than on the woman who'd trespassed. The unspoken message was clear. They expected him to fold, to be quiet, to let it go, because that's what people like him were supposed to do. Marcus refused. He pulled out his phone and documented everything. The car in his garage, the screaming on his doorstep, the smug faces of neighbors who acted like he was the problem. He knew that if this escalated, he would need proof. Proof of entitlement. Proof of the line being crossed. Proof that this wasn't about a garage, it was about respect. Tension spiked when Karen threatened to call the police. Go ahead, Marcus thought. Explain to them why your car is locked inside my property. Yet even as he stood tall, he felt the weight of what might come next. He knew how easily a black man could be painted as the aggressor, even when he was the victim. The thought pressed heavy on his chest, but he didn't back down. Words spread faster than he imagined. Neighbors peeked through blinds, some filming from across the street. Karen's voice cracked with rage as she screamed for Marcus to open the garage. But Marcus stayed calm, his silence louder than her shouts. Each second the car stayed inside, the neighborhood's tension grew, and just when Marcus thought it couldn't escalate further, blue and red lights flickered at the end of the street. The police had arrived. Karen's triumphant smile cut across the crowd, convinced that Marcus was about to pay the price. But Marcus had something she didn't: evidence. And as the officers stepped out of their cruiser, hands resting on their belts, the question hung in the air like a storm about to break. Who would the law really listen to tonight? The flashing lights washed over Marcus's home, casting red and blue shadows across the lawn. The officers stepped out with rigid postures, their hands hovering near their belts. Karen rushed toward them, her voice sharp and desperate, painting Marcus as the villain. He stole my car. He locked it in his garage. Her words cut through the night, twisted into a story designed to make him the threat. Marcus raised his hand slowly, his chest tight. He knew how quickly this could spiral, how a single gesture could be the difference between going inside his house or never making it back in. The crowd pressed closer, phones lifted, some whispering, some waiting for the spectacle to unfold. Officer barked at him to step away from his own porch. Another questioned him like a criminal, his tone clipped and suspicious. The neighbors watched in silence, not one daring to speak the truth, that the car was Karen's and that she had invaded his space. Marcus felt the rage boiling inside, but he swallowed it. This wasn't just about anger. This was about survival. And then he made his move. With trembling fingers, Marcus pulled out his phone and held it high. On the screen, the video played. Karen's car sitting inside his garage, her banging on his door, her words dripping with entitlement. The evidence was undeniable. The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling through the night. The officers froze, their suspicion shifting. Karen's face twisted, her confidence crumbling as the truth played out for everyone to see. Marcus's pulse thundered. In his ears, his breath uneven, but he stood his ground. For the first time, the weight of proof was on his side. Still, the silence that followed was suffocating. Would the officers finally acknowledge the truth? Or would the color of his skin matter more than the evidence in his hand? The tension cracked as the video finished playing. The officer's eyes shifted from Marcus to Karen, and for the first time that night, the narrative began to change. One officer cleared his throat, his voice softer now, asking Karen to explain herself. Her words stumbled, her face flushed with the realization that the power she thought she had was slipping away. The crowd, once silent, began whispering louder, the truth undeniable. Marcus didn't feel victorious. Relief washed over him, yes, but it was tangled with exhaustion and the bitter knowledge of how close things had come to disaster. A simple act of arrogance and SUV parked in his garage had nearly escalated into something that could have cost him his freedom, or worse, his life. He knew it wasn't just about a car. It was about perception, about power, about what it meant to be Black in a neighborhood that never wanted him there to begin with. In the days that followed, Karen avoided him. The HOS stayed quiet. But Marcus knew silence wasn't justice, it was fear. And while her SUV had rolled out of his garage, the memory of those flashing lights, of being treated as guilty before proven innocent, would never roll away. This wasn't just Marcus's story. It's the story of countless others who faced the weight of prejudice in moments both small and life-threatening. A garage, a car, a confrontation, each one revealing the deeper reality of inequality that lingers in our community's dot. So the question remains, how many more Marcuses will it take before the world admits the truth? And when the next moment comes, will anyone be brave enough to stand on the right side of it?